My dad has always told me the story of how, when he was growing up, the mountains behind the big house were mostly void of trees. How when he was a kid, you could see all the way to the tops. In this week's story, we're going to reveal the changes apparent in three mountains: the Pinnacle, Coit, and Bald Mountain, all of which were the backdrops for the chateau in history and its photo records. New Hampshire's chief industries from the late 1600 to around 1825 were logging and subsequently sheep farming. The logging would clear hundreds of acres of New Hampshire forest, and sheep would graze the eventual fields that were lined with thousands of miles of stone wall fences. The wool from the sheep would go on to support the earliest of the American Industrial Revolution and its nascent textile industry. This 1857 lithograph, drawn from one of the hills south of Newport, shows a town whose trees have been largely cut. At the lower left of the picture is the old South Congregational Church, and to the upper right is the backside of the mountain that today we call the Pinnacle. The Pinnacle is the mountain that is adjacent to what is the land that the chateau was located on. By 1877, the town had grown from a population of approximately 2,077 in 1857 to 2,600 people. The community had been established. Agriculture was diminishing as a way of life, and the mills and textiles were becoming the dominant industries, their power being supplied by the many rivers and large streams. Both the rivers and the railroad were making Newport a growing center of local wealth and prosperity. In this 1877 lithograph, the Pinnacle, Coit, and Camel Hump Mountains are shown at the top in top left. If we follow Sunapee Street along the river, we can see both the many mills and open fields, while the mountains have been depicted with some amount of trees. As we follow the river up and to the right, at the very corner of the lithograph is what appears to be a large house and barn with a mansard roof. Though I'm unsure, this may be an early depiction of the chateau, as its location on this map would be very close. By 1892, we are on the edge of our modern times as we know them. In another 29 years, my grandfather and grandmother would move to Newport. This 1892 Sullivan County map of Newport shows the property owners as they existed then. Of note is the Riverside Stock Farm. This photograph is the earliest that I'm aware of and was published in the book New Hampshire Agriculture in 1897. The southern spine of the Pinnacle can be seen in the background and is clearly void of most trees. On a side note, the write-up in the book said this of the farm: the Riverside Farm at Newport, located in the beautiful valley of Sugar River, is about 1 mile east of the charming village of Newport, which is one of the most beautiful places in the state. This farm embraces about 650 acres of land and is admirably adapted for the use to which it has been put, the breeding and rearing of gentlemen's first-class driving and road horses. There is a good half-mile track on the place where the horses have been trained in the past." End quote. And for current reference, the abutments for the bridge that cross to the track are still there and visible. The early 20th century would be the beginning of the end for the treeless slopes of the surrounding mountains. Manufacturing was now the dominant industry, and farming and logging would become increasingly a footnote to the area's historical past. These last two photos overlooking the town of Guild, only 2 miles up Sunapee Street from the chateau, show the backside of Bald Mountain. Mostly treeless here around 1910, by the 1960s the open fields and pastures would be largely gone. The end of a historical era.
Don't you waste your life away in this one-horse town, because the cities have their big lights and the concrete streets are paved, and the towers and the hotels, they shine like silver stars. Don't you think it's time that you be leaving this old town? Can't you see it's time